I'm really excited. Thank you to everyone for being here. We're going to dive into a challenge that I think is very present in the industry today, which is permitting, and it keeps on coming up. Everyone's dealing with it now. Just to get a sense in the room before we give an introduction to Charlie and Andreas here and learn a little bit about everything that we're going to be chatting about. Just help us get a sense for what we have going on in the room today. So just curious, like let's look at the last 5 years for everyone here. Curious to know, drop it in the chat, how permitting has changed for you. Has it one, gotten better? Has it two, gotten worse? Or has it three, stayed the same? One, two, or three? One, it's gotten better. Two, it's gotten worse. Three, it's stayed the same. Permitting for you in the last 5 years. Curious to know. And then while that's happening, Charlie, would love a little bit of an introduction to you and the Pulley team.
Yeah. Thanks for having us here. It's great to see you again. We're Pulley. Our mission is to help folks break ground faster. And today we do that by streamlining every step of the permitting process. We built some pretty cool technology around it, and you'll hear more about all of that. I can give a quick intro on myself as well. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO. Before Pulley, come from a software background, was a product manager at Amazon. Before that, a software engineer, but it does not take long living in San Francisco to get radicalized by permitting and the difficulty when we make it really difficult, how painful that is for everyone in the community. So yeah, excited to be here and chat with everyone, and got my co-founder Andreas here with me as well.
Yeah, Andreas, please tell us a little bit about yourself, because you are from the A&E industry, right?
Yeah. So Andreas, co-founder, COO here at Pulley. I started my career in real estate development and investment, have done permitting in a whole bunch of states in Europe, in Asia. It's bad on every continent, but that's why we feel like our mission is so important. And before we started Pulley, I was the chief of staff at a company called Procore, which I'm sure many of you log into from time to time.
Yes, the place that we all jump into from time to time, for sure. We've got a great amount of answers coming in here. Seeing a lot of twos, a lot of gotten worse, which isn't surprising. Eric sent us a message and said probably something that's pretty relatable. Better in terms of reviews and comments are online and virtual, but bad in terms of more stringent and complex regarding historic and site critical area situations. And timeline has stayed the same here. And Eric, you're in Annapolis, yeah? I think so. So that's like a small area in Maryland, but I think I've personally heard different things from people in cities like San Francisco and New York, that it has gotten worse, but just longer. Always getting longer, always taking longer. So let's do another poll, get a better sense here. So I'm curious to know, how much time is everyone spending on permitting per week, right? How much time is everyone spending on permitting per week? Drop a 1 if you're not spending any time on it, a 2 if it's 1 to 2 hours, a 3 if it's 2 to 5, and a 4 if it's 5 to 10 hours. So how much time are you spending on permitting weekly? 1 is for none, 2 is for 1 to 2, 3 is for 2 to 5, and 4 is for 5 to 10 hours. Seeing a healthy mix here. Are any of these answers surprising you guys yet? I'm curious.
I think this is within the realm of what we often see from a lot of our friends in the world of architecture. I mean, quite a few 3s and 4s here. So we might honestly, we maybe should have even offered a 5 option here, but
10 plus hours a week. Yeah,
we'll talk more about it. But permitting is a huge responsibility for architects, just like so many other parts of the project. It's the buck stops there.
You know what's crazy for me, as someone that speaks with architects all of the time about how to improve their business, is that just a good standard rate for firm owners and firm leaders is that they should be spending about 20% of their time on like business development efforts that are going to drive the business forward every week. So that's like 8-ish hours, 8 to 10 hours a week. And it sounds like, based on these responses, that time is actually being spent on permitting instead. And so I don't like to hear that, because that's probably blocking them from spending time on actually going out and getting business. So I don't love to hear that, but we are really excited to dive into it today. So what we're going to talk about, we're obviously going to talk about permitting, how it's changed. We're going to dive into exactly what any firm can do to improve their process, right? Regardless of whether you choose Pulley or don't choose Pulley, or what Pulley actually does. And then for those of you that are interested, we're going to take a deeper dive into Pulley and see how you all are working with other firms to really accelerate that process, take it off their hands, and give them some of that time back so they can, spend it where they want to be spending it. But I'm curious, just for everyone in the room, we got a little introduction, Charlie, from you, but I'm curious if you all can tell us a little bit more about just a quick elevator pitch of what Pulley is.
Yeah, well, Charlie definitely gave you some context there, but we always say that our goal here is to make permitting fast and predictable for commercial project teams. We're laser focused on these projects where it can take weeks, months, quarters to get approval. And today, that's a significant amount of time, right? That's in many cases longer than it takes to do the construction itself, is the time it takes to get these approvals to break ground, and that's painful for everyone involved. It has implications for the general public, for our country. So I think that's why what we do is so important. And our approach, again, it's interesting. We offer AI-driven solutions for permitting, but it's all backed by local experts. We have full-time members of our team all around the country, many of them from A&E backgrounds who actually work with our customers to help deliver a lot of the value and a lot of the services that we do in thousands of jurisdictions. Today, we work with leading customers in every industry, but folks ranging from AutoZone and Starbucks to Prologis, JLL Design, many, many other architects. And we recently hit a milestone. We've now done $12 billion of commercial construction in all 50 states. It took us a while to get Alaska and Hawaii, but we're finally everywhere.
$12 billion. I'm sure that's a number that all of us can relate to. It's just, chump change at this point. So that's amazing. All 50 states, 12 billion. That's a lot of impact. Well, I'm curious, out of all these conversations that you're having, what are the biggest pain points that you're hearing from architects when it comes to the permitting process?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that so much of it has to do with the volume of work associated with preparing submittals, with doing all the research on the front end of projects. And one of the things that makes it harder is, as we've seen the average number of rounds of comments increase in jurisdictions all over the country, well, that means more time making submittals. It means more design rework, which again, it's all zero sum. We all have, finite hours each week to spend on work, and more time goes to this and maybe less time goes to doing the things we love or the things that grow our business.
And I'm curious, because now we have a really good baseline of what's happening in the room, right? We know that for the most part, it seems like it's gotten worse. Permitting the last 5 years has gotten worse for people. I'm actually shocked by the answers we've seen in the chat in terms of how much time people are spending on permitting. I didn't realize it was this much. It's probably not surprising to you guys. I didn't realize it was this much for so many of the firm owners here. And so I'm curious, how from your end, how has permitting changed?
I think it's changed tremendously. Actually, I think, Charlie, I mean, you can jump here too, but I feel like, Eric, your perspective is very much aligned in some ways to ours. I mean, I think just zooming way out here, sometimes it's helpful to look at the big picture. Over the last 60 years, the average time to get an approval in the United States has increased by about 400%. So really significant increase in the duration spent in permitting. Over that timeline, of course, we've seen the number of discrete jurisdictions in the U.S. increased, again, now tops 19,000. We've got this cognitive bias towards additions, so we've been adding more permits and more approvals and more different types of review disciplines. And again, that has led to bigger submittals, more comments, more work. But going back to what Eric said, I think very true. We saw this rapid change in just a few months in terms of how permitting worked. It became digitized in many places. And while that was perhaps disruptive in the short term, it also did open the door to new types of solutions. It's frankly the reason Charlie and I started Pulley, was because we felt like for the first time there was this opportunity to introduce technology into the equation in ways that would actually help drive better outcomes. But comparing 1960 to 2025, what you'll see again, permitting takes way longer. And that has disproportionately impacted project economics for owners, but it has disproportionately impacted architects in terms of who's actually having to do a lot more of this work for a lot longer time to drive these approvals. So we did a kind of an informal straw poll in the lead up to this. And yeah, our data was similar to respondents here. A lot of architects reporting spending 25% of their time each week doing permitting or design changes resulting from city review.
That's significant. That graph that you had pulled up before was a little bit terrifying. Not the direction that we want to see our graphs moving in an industry. We don't want to see efficiency moving down. We don't want to see time going up. We don't have time for that because everything else around in the world is moving faster. So if we're moving slower, that's putting us behind, and that's generally going to mean that our clients and owners aren't going to be happy either, which isn't good. Because even though it's not our fault as architects, they're gonna be upset. They're still gonna be upset with you, or you're still gonna have to kind of deal with that frustration that people are feeling. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about the impact that that's having on architects, but what other things are you hearing from architects specifically about how it's impacting their day to day and their processes and their workflows?
Yeah, I mean, I will just say that while probably a majority of our customers here at Pulley are owners and developers, we have a ton of architects who are working directly with us or collaborating in the platform. And because we are such active participants in the permitting process, we really are lucky to get to spend time with some incredible designers and technical project architects as well. I mean, Charlie, I'm curious for your take on this, but some of the things I feel like I've heard quite a lot of is just that, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Like in many ways, the same pressures that existed 5 or 10 years ago are still there. And to the extent that there is pressure from owners around fees and things like that, and this expectation that things should be getting way more efficient, maybe the technology hasn't totally caught up yet. But it's a lot of the same stuff, trying to retain top talent, trying to find the good clients who, are value oriented and aren't trying to, penny pinch all the time. But yeah, Charlie, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like an emotional component to it, which we've seen and heard, right? I think, Tyler, you were hinting at this. As an architect, you feel responsible for the outcome of the entire process. And permitting sits at this moment where you've gotten to high fidelity on your drawings, right? You've gotten client sign offs. Everyone can sort of almost smell the concrete being poured, right? You're just about ready to start construction. And then you got this huge blocker in the way. And, architects are, of course, not doing the city reviews. They don't control the underlying permitting process. But from a client's perspective, right, they're holding the architect accountable to getting through this process. And when that doesn't go smoothly and it doesn't go as quickly as folks are hoping, and the construction perhaps is delayed, folks are starting to think about maybe the overall delivery of the space getting delayed. You want to make this a smooth experience for your client, right? And you put a lot of pride in your overall work. And so there's definitely, I think, an emotional component and when the permitting isn't going quite according to plan. And from a business perspective, I think one of the other things that's also really interesting, right, is that the risk that permitting adds to your business as a firm, right? If you're trying to underwrite a certain amount of hours that you're going to spend on the permitting, right? You have certain maybe agreements in place where you can charge more for certain types of hours, but if you're getting an extra round of comments, right? If your clients expecting you to deliver the permitting in a certain time frame, right? You might not always necessarily get to charge and cover your costs for extra time spent in permitting. And so there's definitely from a business perspective, also like a risk that you have to hedge for and understand.
I feel like risk is an important word. I just did a newsletter on Sunday about predictability, right? This is what clients want. They want predictability. They want to know what the timeline is going to be. And when we have these risks of like inconsistent permitting processes, it can really get in the way of your relationship with your client and also with just what you're trying to deliver for them and the outcomes that you're trying to get for them. So I'm curious for people.
I was going to say,
yeah, go ahead.
You don't mind me jumping in here, right?
Yeah, jump in.
Permitting is different in every city and county in the country, right?
Yeah.
And what a good outcome is relative. And so much your client's perception of if permitting went well is based on the expectations that you set at the beginning. Because sometimes getting an approval, in one jurisdiction, getting an approval in 12 weeks is a disaster. In parts of California, that could be a huge win, right? And so, setting the right expectations early and then delivering on those without padding your estimates too much and then being accused of sandbagging, right? That is the secret to happy clients when it comes to permitting.
Yes, that's a great point. Thank you for doubling down on that. Communication. It always comes back to communication. You have to communicate effectively. You have to set those expectations the right way. Is this relatable to people in the room? I'm just curious. Like, drop in a thumbs up if everything that Andreas and Charlie is saying is something that you're experiencing on your end as well. Let's just take a quick temperature, because what we know now, people are spending more time on it. It's having, for the most part, it's having, I'd say a negative, overall negative impact probably on what architects are trying to complete, right? Get done. It's kind of getting in the way of where they want to be spending their time, and it's slowing things down for the industry. And so, seeing a lot of thumbs up here. So, I mean, what are the options that architects have for moving forward and improving their permitting process?
Well, I'm super excited to hear how a lot of our friends here today are thinking about it. I think when I talk to senior partners in architecture firms today, it seems like we're at an inflection point, and a lot of folks are asking the question, okay, I've always done permitting, and perhaps there are good reasons for that, right? Very interdependent with construction drawings and things like that. But what kind of firm do I want to be, and what do I want to focus on? What do I want to tell clients is my core focus, right? I love this quote from Dolly Parton, and I love this picture of Dolly Parton, who says, "Know who you are and be it on purpose." What makes me excited is I feel like more architects are being intentional about how much permitting they want to do and they want to commit to, and they're realizing that they have options, and if they feel like it's not something that they want to make one of their core competencies, they're starting to consider alternatives. And the alternatives are a lot better than they used to be, right? It's not always just having to go and find an expediter hanging outside the buildings department, and give them like cash in a paper bag or something like that, right? They're actually firms that are specializing this and are taking a really interesting approach. So I think the permitting is a choice. It's a strategic decision point in terms of how you want to fit that into your firm's mix of capabilities. And just like every strategic trade-off, there are pros and cons, right? Like, I think there's certain architecture firms where it makes a ton of sense that they handle permitting in-house, right? If it's extremely local, if you just build stuff in a small number of jurisdictions and you actually have spent 20 years doing projects there day in and day out, and you have the time, that could be a really good way to deliver a vertically integrated service to your clients and drive a great outcome, as well as utilizing the sort of time that you and your team have to do it. The other example I often give is projects that are extremely technical, right? With approvals that span local, state, federal authorities. Sometimes we see that, right? In healthcare, you probably see a higher incidence of healthcare specialist architects wanting to do permitting. But that obviously, those two things, hyper local, hyper technical, that doesn't describe every project out there and the focus of every architecture firm. We see a lot of folks who do want to operate in a lot of jurisdictions, who do want to do lots of different types of projects, who want to serve a certain type of client. And if you want to have that diversity of focus in other areas, well, that can have really significant implications from a permitting perspective. That suddenly means that you have to understand the building code in multiple states, understand how all these different cities work, and that's just a lot to handle.
And so, okay, so basically you're like, there's two options, right? It is a strategic choice, and the option is you keep permitting in-house, right? Or it's something that you're going to kind of either offload or at least get help with along the way. And so if you're keeping it in-house, great fit if you're already hyper local, or if you already kind of execute hyper technical work. But if you are multidisciplinary, or even it sounds like multi regional, right? Right. So you're not just in one place, then your options are either you need to become an expert in all of those markets and areas that you're pursuing, or you need to find someone to kind of help and offload some of that effort. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the last piece is really, again, in this refrain of wanting to attract and retain top talent. Like, does your team have time do they like permitting? Like some architects actually really like permitting. A lot of those
Yeah.
so folks actually we employ at Pulley and they're great at it. But like, do you like it? You know, you're good at the work that you love.
If
Do
you
you
like it, reach out to Andreas and Charlie right after this. They're
Yeah.
gonna they want to
Come
hear
on,
from you.
we got a lot of open recs, but
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of our perspective on it anyway. We see an interesting choice. What is Don saying here in the chat?
Yeah, difficult to inform clients what's involved in permitting, and I think he's right. Yeah, to put a cost to the service, I think that's totally right because actually, it's a huge part. It's a huge part of the value of architects is understanding how to navigate this, and move it forward. And it's something that I think like a client is going to be like, everyone has to do it. It's fine. Like just do it, right? And they don't realize that there's like a nuance. there's so much nuance to that, to doing it well and to helping to move the project forward. But I'm curious.
It's a great point, Don. And yeah, I mean, at this point now, having done projects in thousands of jurisdictions and just having all this project experience, we've gotten a lot better at pricing it. We also can afford to, we want to create that simplicity for our customer in terms of having a fixed fee model. And sometimes, if you probably look at our margins, we come out ahead or behind, but we're sort of spreading that risk. But if you're only working on, a few dozen projects a year or at a time or whatever, yeah, like that could materially eat into your margin also, as Charlie was saying earlier.
And I'm curious, like what, for the firms that are doing it, right? I'm guessing this is the majority of the firms, like just in the United States, right? They're probably doing it in-house. What are the factors that you found really influence whether they're doing this effectively or ineffectively? Like, is it a combination of knowledge? Is it systems that they have in the background? Is it relationships that they have with municipalities? Like what's actually, like, what are the main factors involved in that?
In my experience, the firms that are doing it best, they are probably hyper local and they're actually having the same folks who are actually doing a lot of the design work on the project also spending their precious time doing permitting. I think you sometimes see firms that have more of this, like, they'll have like a team within the team that is just doing permitting. And it can make sense for some folks, but I actually think the architecture firms that are doing permitting the best are the ones who are A, super local, and B, having the same person who's drawing the drawings actually doing the permitting. Because they're technical and they understand what is the issues that are actually in play.
Yeah. Sorry, architect. I tried to see if Andreas was going to give you all a silver bullet on that one, but I didn't know if that truly existed. Like, are there factors that like firms can do to do it? So you're saying no, the best way to be effective is that you kind of have one person, or it sounds like a team that is specifically devoted to that function of permitting and moving things forward.
I mean, we always say there are no silver bullets when it comes to permitting because it's just there's too much complexity. It's different everywhere. Maybe, Tyler, I was missing a layup to actually use this as a pivot point to introduce Pulley in, because I do think that we have. I do think that.
I mean, I didn't mean it as a transition, but yeah, we can do it. I mean, take the layup, because obviously so option one, you keep it in house. Option two, I mean, no one's going to be surprised here. That's what Pulley does, right? So you all help with that process. Like, what can you talk and share a little bit about what that actually looks like in practice?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Charlie, you obviously work day in and day out with our permitting team, with the engineering team that's building incredible new technology for permitting. Like, how would you describe our core solution here?
Yeah, I mean, there's two key pieces to it, right? That roll back together to an experience that is streamlined for the frontline folks doing the work, right? Folks that are drawing the drawings actually have to manage the comment response, but then also delivers a better outcome, right? It's actually a faster approval that's more predictable for the folks designing the projects and for the clients that are paying for them. And we built a lot of software around the permitting process. So there's a streamlined platform where you can do every step of the permitting workflow in any jurisdiction directly through our tool. You would see checklists, right, of the specific requirements needed for your project. You would actually submit to the jurisdiction through our platform, see real-time status that comes back from different city permitting portals. We pull that directly into our tool, and there's a great managed workflow for comment response directly in the tool, where you could be gathering your responses from your MEP engineers and your structural engineers and automating, the compilation of even your response letters. And so this great platform makes it really streamlined and clear what you have to do at every step of the way in a way that's also super collaborative. And then we have a bunch of AI plus in-house expert services that then help you get a better outcome from permitting, right? So we've got thousands of different jurisdictions in our database. We've got lots of, tens of billions of dollars worth of historical projects, as you heard of, and that helps us do the research really accurately, right? So you're always designing with compliance in mind, and you always know exactly what the city's going to want to see before you submit. We're helping you, be an extra set of eyes before those documents even go to the city and catch, inconsistencies or issues that might appear in your drawings before the reviewers see them. And, all along the way, we've got great in-house teammates who, come from very similar backgrounds, right? Former architects who will interface with the city on your behalf and guide you through the process start to finish.
Yeah. So essentially, we tell you well in advance everything you're going to need. We make it really easy to upload the plans, the materials you need into our platform. Any permitting work you need to do, you can do in Pulley. Our team of local permitting experts, many of whom are, again, licensed architects, will actually go through, look through everything. We've also, some of the AI, Charlie, you were mentioning, I mean, it's pretty cool. You can go through now and with the models that we've trained, catch references to the wrong address, the wrong building code on a cover sheet, things that aren't signed and sealed properly, all these types of issues that result in more comments. And of course, more comments means longer time to overall approval. So it's a pretty powerful combination when you put the right tools into the hands of people that know what to do with them.
And what's the impact that you typically see when you institute something like this versus what they were between, like, they were doing in-house before, now they bring in some help? What's that usually result in?
I mean, it can be pretty profound, right? When every additional round of comments costs can represent 3 to 4, 5 additional weeks. And when 90% of the projects that we do are getting approved with 1 round of comments or fewer, I would say on average, we're seeing, 40, 50% time savings, right? If the project team would otherwise go through 2 to 3 rounds of comments. So not uncommon to see 2, 4, 6 weeks saved. And again, this comes back to just this fact of how much longer permitting takes than construction in many places, right? Like, I know a lot of superintendents who would give a lot to save 3 days on a construction schedule. We have an opportunity to save 3 weeks in permitting, and no matter who you are in construction, right? Time is money.
I feel like the most terrifying statement that's been said in this whole webinar is what you just said. It's remarkable to think of how much longer permitting can take than construction. That is wild. That is a wild state of 2025 in my mind. Like, that should not be the case.
It should not be the case.
Yeah.
It does not make any sense. But it is where we are, and it's why we need to introduce these types of technologies, and it's why permitting deserves this kind of specialization to actually reverse that fact. And I saw the comment earlier just in terms of, like, city, the challenges with city staff. And I think there's truth to that, right? A lot of folks have retired from buildings departments. They're understaffed. A lot of the reviewers maybe haven't had years of experience, time in chair. And so it's even more important to have to dot every I, cross every T, reduce every possible surface area for them to slow down your projects.
Yeah, I think what Jeb said is totally true. I used to experience that. I mean, this is something that we all face all the time, right? It's just, I think there's a little bit of, for architects and engineers, we are everyone's highly educated. You've all gone through a long process, and generally you're dealing with boards or anyone else that doesn't have the same amount of knowledge and experience as you. And it's a really weird like balance and disconnect that's happening in that. And so anything that can kind of help to improve that collaboration and communication that's actually happening in the process is going to be helpful. I'm assuming that Don's question here is going to be addressed by Charlie, but when we actually, Charlie, is it possible? Can we get a look at the platform and see what it looks like? But so Don had said, is this more of a quality check prior to submitting for a permit, or does this system actually integrate with AHJ's system?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? And like the high level idea is it almost feels as if the city is using Pulley on their end, right? Because instead of going through their portals or even their email submissions, their underlying process, right? You can consolidate all of your work into this one tool in a way that still feels very local, right? You're seeing the exact permits at that jurisdiction offered, right? You're seeing the exact checklists of documents that they're going to want to see. You're filling out their specific forms, but all through this one single tool. And then I guess, yeah, the short answer to Don's question is yes, it's both, right? All along the way, we're then augmenting the workflow with these moments where we help actually drive a better outcome, right? So you'll see in the tool, right, some feedback on a set of drawings before it gets submitted. Even when you're working through a set of comments, right, you've got eyes on that from our team to be, again, an extra perspective before things go back to the city to make sure our responses are written well and what we're submitting matches what the reviewers want to see. So let me pull up a little sample account here. This is the main dashboard to Pulley. You can see you have a few different projects in different phases of the life cycle. It's really clear as I log in the morning, right? I've got a couple tasks in my court that are overdue, right? There's a site plan that I need to upload for one project that we're getting ready to submit. There's comments back from a different jurisdiction that I need to respond to. And then I can see all of my projects in one place, and I can clearly see the status and which of them have open tasks that I need to be mindful of and work through.
Did he freeze?
So
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was, so yeah, this is the main dashboard, right? And so like, I guess we could answer some of the questions, like, what does this look like? How does it work with the city's process? I can just like pop open really quick, like a specific project here. That's maybe, I'll take this one here, right? That's like not submitted yet. You see on this one, we're going to work through a couple different permits. There's a zoning clearance we need beforehand before we can actually go through plan review. There's a main building permit. And for each of these, I can click in and I can see really clear checklists. I can see what I've done, what I still need to do in order to be able to submit. There's a nice history to it. On this one over here, to the question on the pre-checking, right? A lot of different requirements we're still working through. One of which we have some feedback from Pulley, right? So if I were to open this into a new tab here, you'd actually see some of these different items flagged again by Pulley for the design team to help you that extra set of eyes, so that when we are sending this off to the city, to Andreas' point, we're putting our best foot forward and really trying to minimize the service area for them to give us feedback and to slow us down.
So just to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. So we have what this is a much clear way to understand where you're at in the permitting process, what things are required for you to submit, where those are at in the submission process. But you're saying even from a human level involvement on the Pulley side, your team is also before submission going to review these things and flag anything that they would anticipate coming up to help expedite that process too.
Yeah, especially right, like earlier in the conversation, right, we were talking about like how has permitting changed over decades, but in particular, right, how has it changed in the last few years coming out of the pandemic? It's great that the cities run such a digital process now, right? You can submit permits anywhere in the country from a computer, right? You've got a much clearer sense of what the requirements are now that cities have a much more formal, much more documented process. But it also puts heightened pressure on making sure each and every one of those submittals is as buttoned up as possible, because there's a lot more leniency in the system now, right? Like every time you submit, you're going to wait 3 to 6 weeks to hear back from the city. You can't necessarily drive down the street and walk into the buildings department anymore and talk through issues and nuances with your reviewers. And so yeah, we're really trying to make sure what we send at each turn is as buttoned up as possible.
That's awesome. And then in terms of like the boots on the ground team, right? For Pulley, like what does that look like? Is that tracked here as well, or is that something separate, or how does that work?
Yeah, we've hired out a pretty incredible team. A lot of them come from similar backgrounds. I think that probably folks on this call, architects bring a lot of expertise when it comes to the codes and comes to permitting. And we've got an incredible team of over 40 full-time employees now spread out all across the country. We've intentionally hired them in the trickiest places to permit and equipped them with a lot of tooling and data to be well capable of permitting everywhere in between. And all the way down, Southern California, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, Miami, Denver. I could rattle off a long list of places where permitting is hard and where we've got great boots on the ground and experience now to help our customers.
And so, what it sounds like is that it's almost like there's two things, right, that are kind of coming out of this. One is that there is a much easier way to manage and track your permitting process than what most firms are doing today. But the second thing is that there's no way of avoiding the fact that you should be designing with compliance in mind, right? I think like every architect is kind of doing this to a certain extent, right? I think it's usually in the back of our mind, but there's no way around the fact that no matter what, these drawings and these sets that we're all putting together, these designs, they're going to need to be compliant. And so I'm curious to hear from your conversations, Andreas and Charlie, like how often are you finding that clients are actually asking architects for permitting during the due diligence period?
I mean, I'm curious to know what the audience thinks, but I think that's one of the most frequent points of feedback we get from architects is we're being asked on every project, sometimes before we even signed up for it, how long is permitting going to take? You know, what can I do? What can't I do with this particular parcel? Maybe even during due diligence. And, you know, of course, that is the answers are out there. It takes work to go and find them, especially very early on in a project when the concept is maybe still coming together. Of course, I'm sure everybody on this call is doing a whole bunch of code research as they move into actually creating a set of production drawings. But yeah, like it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of the fly-in questions that I think architects get from their clients are around permitting requirements very early on.
Yeah. Well, let's get a sense. I'm curious now, like people here in the room, are you, so one, yes, you are getting questions about permitting during due diligence. That's a one. A two is that you're not. I'm just curious, like just flat, are we one, are you getting it during due diligence, or two, it's not happening during due diligence? Getting probably what's unsurprising to you. One, yeah, getting ones down the field. Well, let's go on every project. Yeah, Sean, Jeb, hey Tyler, good to see you here. Okay, so unsurprising then. So it is happening. So that's good and bad news. That means that obviously people are aware that this is part of the process, and it's something that's going to be involved in it. But also that means that they're heavily expecting the architect to be very aware of this and very involved in that process. So just an open question, how is everyone doing permit and code research today? And maybe Andreas, while they're answering that, what are you usually seeing with the firms that you're talking to?
I mean, we're seeing a lot of people picking up the phone and you know, scrolling through city websites that look like they were, you know, made in Microsoft Office 1998, and you know, trying to piece together the answers if it's not a jurisdiction or a project type that they're super familiar with. And then, of course, there are more tools for code research, but a lot of them are pretty heavy duty, right? They're the kinds of things that you want to do when you have AutoCAD or Revit open in front of you and you're trying to solve for a specific code issue. It's not necessarily giving you that really high level snapshot of what types of general codes you're going to be subject to and what types of specific guidelines you should keep in mind. I see Upcode's mentioned, obviously an incredible tool.
Best tool, yeah.
That type
That's amazing.
Of heavy duty code research.
Yes. Yeah. So there are opportunities like that. But then, you know, Eric had even said, you know, Upcodes and then also calling a contact locally, which is, I mean, I remember doing code research and being like, why did I go to school for, you know, 8 years so that I could maybe try to dissect what in the world these people mean on this website that looks like it was made back in 1980. Like I can't figure out what anything means here. So I think, you know, it's always a combination of those two things. It's like sometimes you can find the right information that you're looking for, but then based on your experience, you might actually want to talk to a person and verify that it's true, right? And that something hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And so,
but yeah, I think like also let's maybe just also to try to make a differentiation between a few different types of questions that people are trying to answer.
Yeah.
There's the question of what can I build, right? You're doing a lot of code research there. There's the question of what if I do build this, what permits do I need? What am I going to have to prepare and give to the city to get that approval, and how long it's going to take, right? Those are layered questions. I think all architects, I think I feel confident saying all architects do the code research to figure out what they can build. And then I think inevitably, if you're handling permit, at some stage, you go try to figure out what permits you're going to need, how long it's going to take, et cetera. I think just because we're all busy, what we've observed is that sometimes that research around the permitting process maybe doesn't happen with the same level of thoroughness as a lot of folks would like, or just happens later in the project lifecycle once we're actually getting really close to going and submitting for a permit.
Yeah.
And I think that's an area where, again, if I'm not sure if I'm in a position to give advice, but if I did, it would be to prioritize that type of process-based research early on at the same time as you're doing the code research, when you still have time to spare in the project and you can make little adjustments of different kinds in order to ultimately minimize rework and, stave off fire drills.
Mhm. And I know, I mean, here we are, we're kind of on the eve of the AI revolution, if not in it. If it might have already arrived potentially. And so I know you had mentioned some parts of Pulley also being AI powered. Lots of opportunities for firms they're thinking about it, they're exploring it, they're testing it a little bit. What's your kind of take on how AI can be used in the permitting process today? And is it something that you all are actually implementing into the tool now?
Charlie, can we use AI?
Permitting is a great fit for what AI is really good at today, right? As this conversation, a lot of this conversation, right? There's a lot of different information and text that you're reading through, right? There's hundreds of pages of local community codes, right? There's thousands of pages of the building code. There's these arcane city websites, the PDFs and the checklists linked through them. Even sometimes crawling through the underlying permitting portal itself can reveal answers as to what the process will entail. And large language models today excel at all of those things. And hopefully at some point soon down the road, they'll get better also at understanding more two-dimensionally and reasoning about two-dimensional spaces. But what we know for sure today is that they're really great at reading through text, summarizing, finding patterns, searching, right? Finding issues in text. And we found, opportunities all along the permitting journey to leverage AI to make our team more efficient, make our customers more efficient, and again, get a better outcome for the project. Spot a requirement that we might have otherwise missed, right? Spot a guidance checklist or a form that wasn't linked to anywhere else that we found on the web, right? Be able to help fill out the forms for our customers. And permitting is also a game of incredibly high accuracy, as we've talked about, right? Like you really want to scrub everything that you're doing. It's a game that requires nearly 100% accuracy. Cities are very thorough and they're always looking for things to find opportunities for feedback. And I'm sure we've all used different AI tools, right? Like they're not necessarily things that are off the shelf, 100% accurate. And what we've also just invested in a lot is, right, how you get a lot of the value and the benefit of leveraging AI, but still set it up in systems and structures such that you're meeting the accuracy bar that permitting requires, whether that's through offline, training and evaluation of the AI we build with a lot of our in-house experts, before we've even shipped the feature, or just as in how we deploy the AI we doing it in a way where we still have experts and humans in the loop, so that ultimately what our customers are getting is trustworthy and reliable.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I guess maybe just to bring it all home, I mean, you talked about designing with compliance in mind, and Charlie, you talked about what AI is really good at today. I mean, we're very excited about some of these new capabilities that we've built that actually reduces the time and frankly, the cost associated with gathering this really exhaustive, clear picture of the permitting process very early on in the design process. And we call it Pulley Pathfinder. So this is AI-driven permit diligence that is actually backed by, again, those same local experts that would work with you to deliver a subsequent approval. The idea here is you can tell us a little bit about the project that you're building in a tool and leveraging our database of thousands and thousands of projects, as well as information that can be gathered from different sources online and in other city documentation. We can actually map out that process for you in one business day or less at what is ultimately a pretty reasonable cost. And it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting to actually, I think we've all been looking for in the world of permitting, in the world of design, those applications where it's driven by AI and it just works today. This is one of them.
I think you're exactly right, because so often especially with the firms I'm talking to, right? It's like we're playing with it, right? We're testing it. It's giving us a little bit of what we're looking for. It's saving us some time here and there, but the chance of kind of getting it out of the box, ready to go, right? It's already operating the way that we need it to is low. It takes a lot of time to get there. So that's why it's great to have something like a team like Pulley that's already pulling these things together and making it easy to do. Is it different than what we looked at earlier, Charlie? Is it something that we can take a peek at now?
Yeah, I can pull up an example of one of these Pathfinder permitting guides that we've pulled together recently. And yeah, I think this will help paint the picture here. So this is a new bank branch that a client is considering. They haven't necessarily decided to move forward with the site yet, but they've reached out to the architect and maybe even their civil engineer and said, I found this site. I'm talking to my broker. It's potentially, the land's available for a good price to lease. Like, what would it take to build a bank branch here? Is it possible, right? Like, will the zoning even allow what we're developing? Do we have any zoning risks around, conditional uses or potential zoning changes we might need? If we did want to move forward, right? Like, how long would it take us to get this project approved? What are the specific codes that I have to design against? And so, yeah, like as Andrea is saying, right, the way this tool works under the hood is like a customer would come in, describe at a high level, here's the address, here's where it's located, here's roughly the scope of what I would build. And within one business day, we're able to take that, map it to the specific jurisdiction, find the exact parcel, diligence the zoning, look at these crazy allowable use tables, right? And help the customer understand, like, how is the city going to interpret their use? Like, what is the actual then path to getting this approved, right? There's some prereqs here that we would need. Maybe our client would take care of this. Maybe this would be on us. Maybe it'd be on a civil engineer, right, to getting land platted and entitled and go through a site plan review. And then we're, finally ready for construction permitting. And there's some site permitting that we have to do. There's some building permitting we have to do. There's, of course, a whole bunch of other permits we're going to need later on in process. And again, sort of fully, the Pathfinder tool here is telling us, painting us a picture of that story. And then so we understand the requirements, we can set expectations of the client and process. And then, again, really important is understanding like time and cost, right? Like, this is going to take 11 to 13 weeks. And here, how we can start to think about, what the fees might be for these different types of permits.
That's pretty amazing. So all within 24 hours. And this is just based on what you're saying is a short description of what's actually happening in the project. And I'm curious, based on the answers that we got from people earlier, right? People spending a lot. Is this how you're spending a lot of that permitting time, is doing the research like this that Pulley kind of just showed they can do in 24 hours? And I'm genuinely curious if that's if this is what that's typically doing for the firms that you're all working with. Is this something where they usually have a person or an entire team devoted to kind of gathering this information over a few days and pulling it together, but it's something that they're able to offload to you all instead?
By the way, while people are answering that, just to tie a bow around the value of Pathfinder here, I think a lot of it is to do with, as you said, setting the right expectations, right? No surprises. Anything is okay in construction as long as it's not a surprise. If it's a surprise, it's not okay. That's number one. Two, it's just, creating the time and space for yourself and your team to do the planning, to do work where if you know that you need a survey, great. Like that's great to know. If you do it, a month early, you have it. It's trivial. If you need it on the eve of a submission, it's going to be very disruptive. So I'd say like setting the right expectations, planning out the work that actually has to happen, and then being able to move clearly from that into the actual execution of the permitting. We totally understand there are firms, as we've discussed at length, where it makes sense for them to do the permitting themselves. But the way we see it is every single project can and should start in a tool like Pathfinder.
I think what I really appreciate most about what you just showed me is, or about what you just showed all of us, is that I feel like a really common outcome that I see from firms that are implementing or trying different AI tools is that it is giving them answers, but it's kind of like clouded among a ton of unnecessary and complex information, right? Because it's gathering literally everything and then just kind of delivering it to you. And in a way, it's like, well, it saved you some time, but like, it's still going to take even more time than to just run through this and know what you actually need to know. And what I appreciated about what you were just showing there in Pathfinder is that it gives you all of the information that you need up front, but not in a complex way, not in an overwhelming way. It's just the main details that you need explained succinctly and broken up in a way that's kind of easy and digestible. And I think that's a huge win because it's so hard to do that. And I feel like that's one of the largest challenges with anyone trying to implement AI today.
Yeah. It's also just one of the things I think, right, that's just hard about permitting, whether you're using Pulley or not, right? Is how do you synthesize it back down into something that you can wrap your head around of like, what is the process going to be? And from like an architect's perspective, how do you then communicate that back to your client? And so, yeah, we see like a lot of architects also just get excited about Pathfinder because it's now, a nice PDF that they can stick within their overall proposal, and they don't have to do the legwork of city by city, figure out how they're going to like summarize this process and outline it. And they've got this nice format that will, educate their clients of what is it really going to take to get this project underway.
By the way,
And
I was just going to jump in there, Tyler. It's a good point. Whether it's the original project interface that Charlie showed or a Pathfinder, it's all very collaborative. It can all be shared directly with clients. So you don't have to create separate deliverables. You don't even have to bother emailing them a PDF. You can just add people to these projects, to these Pathfinder guides, and then they can see all of that information in real time with those live connections to city platforms, so that you're not having to, again, spend a bunch of time keeping people up to speed on these things. They just get access to the same ground truth.
Oh, interesting. So it's kind of like you just invite the entire project team in a sense, so that they can take a look and see the results as well.
More the merrier.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Well, okay. So I'm curious, like what questions do people have? Start dropping those into the chat. Questions about Pulley, questions about permitting, like drop it in and we'll make sure that we get those answered. While that's happening, Andreas, Charlie, where do people go if they want to check out Pulley for themselves, if they want to explore it a little bit more?
Well, yeah, you can, of course, feel free to reach out to me or Charlie on LinkedIn. We've thrown a QR code up here to a landing page on our website where you can go and request a demo if you want to learn more. We would love to talk to you. We'd love to explore opportunities to support your firm in a variety of different ways. Some of our best friends in the industry are design firms, and on top of that, right, I think you could just visit our webpage directly whenever you like, www.withpulley.com. With Pulley spelled as you see on screen.
I'll drop that in the chat for everyone.
A simple machine that gives you leverage, and also a little word play here on how you actually get a permit. You pull it.
Nice. It's important to know the background behind the name, so that's good. Yeah.
Well, I can't believe that we got through almost an hour here without having the origin story of the name Pulley, which neither Charlie nor I came up with. But
no. Okay. Well, I mean,
join the page. You'll have to be on the Patreon for the subscribers only after the podcast episode there to find out the rest of the story.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So a couple of questions. So what we got, Anne coming in, is this program you are demoing available, or is this something you use for your professional service?
So the platform is proprietary to Pulley. You can you can interact with it a lot as part of engaging us. So, Anne, if it looks like something that you might want to use, you should reach out and we can show you how teams use it, how they use elements of the service and the software, etc. But it is all developed by our incredible product and engineering team in San Francisco with Charlie.
Got it. So usually used as part of the service, you're saying then. It's like, yeah, cool. Okay. Doug, legally, if Pulley provides an inaccurate timeline, giving the client an unreasonable expectation, what happens? Great question.
Great question. I mean, I think that putting aside the legal question, which, I mean, Doug, happy to sidebar on it, but I think like the reality is that in construction, in permitting, everybody operates with positive intent, understands that things change, and it's not a deterministic game. There's an element of unpredictability. It doesn't mean that it isn't a skill-based game. And so, while Pulley, I would never sign us up for saying that we can give you perfect information 100 out of 100 times. What I can say is that the information we provide is, according to every measurement that we've ever done versus conventional approaches to permitting, more accurate and more reliable. In other words, there's a higher probability that it's the right information. And but yeah, the question, I'm not a lawyer here. I'll defer the question of what happens if we don't hit our intended forecast. I will tell you, it's never been a problem for us with our clients, and I think folks understand that, we're putting ourselves out there by trying to give them useful information, and have treated that with the right spirit.
Spirit's a good word. I mean, if I'm reading between the lines there, you're saying it hasn't been a problem so far with the $12 billion worth of projects that you've done up to this point. Am I
Correct. Not yet.
Okay.
And same deal with the fees here, right? The information is reliable. We have people using us again and again and again. You know, it usually, even in construction, right? Do legal issues come up? Yes, but the main if you don't do a good job, people won't keep working with you, and that more than the threat of litigation is, I think, part of what propels all of us to do our best work and show up with the right information day in and day out.
Preach, yeah, love to hear that. Charlie, Andreas, thank you so much for walking us through Pulley. Thanks for making it clear kind of how much of a strategic decision permitting is, right? It's something you can do in-house. It's something that you can get help with. For anyone here, right, if you want to dive in, I mean, jump into a conversation with Charlie and Andreas and team. Go check out withpulley.com. Read that QR code if you didn't already. I'm sure they're going to love to hear from you. And just thanks again for doing this.
Thanks for having us.
Good to see
you.
you.
Right, we'll see you all.
Thanks for the questions.